You wake up tired again, and a quiet thought crosses your mind before the day even begins. I can't keep living like this. Your body moved through the night, but your energy never returned. Your eyes opened, yet something inside you still feels switched off, like a system that never truly shut down. This is not laziness. This is not a lack of discipline. This is a signal. And if you understand it, you can change everything about how you wake up. Most people try to fix low morning energy at the surface. More coffee, louder alarms, motivational speeches in their headphones. But energy is not created by force. It is restored by design. Your mind and body operate like an intricate machine, and right now, that machine is running processes in the background that are silently draining you. You don't wake up exhausted because you are weak. You wake up exhausted because your internal system never entered real recovery mode. There is a hidden truth about energy that almost nobody talks about. Your morning state is decided the night before, but not in the way you think. It is not just about how long you sleep. It is about whether your nervous system felt safe enough to power down. When the system detects unresolved tension, unfinished emotional loops, or constant mental alertness, it does not shut off. It idles. And idling all night is more exhausting than running properly during the day. The first strategy that changes your mornings is deceptively simple, yet deeply transformative. You must teach your system how to close the day. Not physically, psychologically. Your brain is a pattern recognition engine. If every day ends in stimulation, scrolling, planning, worrying, comparing, reacting, it learns that night is just a quieter extension of stress. So when you lie down, your body is horizontal, but your internal alarm remains active. You cannot wake up energized if your system never received the message that the threat cycle ended. Modern life trains you to carry open loops into the night, conversations replaying in your mind, things you didn't finish, expectations about tomorrow. These loops are not harmless thoughts, they are active processes, and active processes consume energy. Here is what shifts everything. Before sleep, you must create a deliberate psychological shutdown sequence. A moment where you consciously signal to your mind, processing for today is complete. This is not denial. It is system regulation. You are not pretending problems disappeared. You are telling your internal machinery that nothing else can be solved in this state, so resources can be reallocated to recovery. When you do not close the day, your brain treats sleep as a tactical pause, not restoration. It keeps one part of your system alert, scanning, rehearsing, predicting. You wake up not refreshed, but as if you were on call all night. That heaviness in the morning is not sleepiness. It is the residue of continuous background processing. Closing the day can be as simple as one intentional ritual, reviewing what was done, acknowledging it, and mentally placing unresolved tasks into tomorrow. Not as worries, but as scheduled items. The moment your mind feels structure, it relaxes. Uncertainty drains energy. Order restores it. Think of your brain like a computer. If dozens of programs stay open, performance drops. Sleep is not the same as shutting down programs. You must close them. The act of mentally concluding the day reduces internal load. And when internal load drops, recovery deepens. Deep recovery is what creates morning energy, not willpower. You may notice resistance here, a voice saying, "But I need to think about these things." That voice is fear disguised as responsibility. True responsibility includes maintaining the system that allows you to function tomorrow. If you never power down, you degrade your own performance. There is also an emotional component most people ignore: unexpressed tension. When you suppress reactions all day, frustration, pressure, urgency, that energy does not disappear. It becomes internal stress. At night, that stress has nowhere to go. so it circulates. Learning to release the day emotionally, even through a few quiet minutes of stillness or slow breathing, tells your nervous system it is safe to stand down. Energy is not only physical, it is neurological permission to relax. Without that permission, your system remains partially activated, and partial activation during rest leads to partial recovery. If this idea is hitting something real inside you, pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, how do your days end? In closure or in continuation? That answer alone explains more about your mornings than any sleep tracker ever could. Share your reflection in the comments. Putting it into words strengthens the shift internally. The second strategy works during the day, but its effect shows up the next morning. It is about how you use your attention. Attention is not just focus. It is energy distribution. Wherever your attention goes, your system allocates resources, and modern life fractures attention into hundreds of fragments. Every notification, every mental switch, every unfinished thought creates a tiny energy leak. One leak is nothing. Hundreds of leaks leave you drained without knowing why. Your mind was not designed to jump contexts every few seconds. Each jump requires recalibration. Recalibration costs energy. By the end of the day, your brain is not only tired from what you did, it is exhausted from how often it had to reorient. That exhaustion carries into sleep. A scattered day creates a scattered night. A scattered night produces a heavy morning. The shift is to practice unitary attention, being fully in one task at a time. This reduces internal fragmentation. When your attention is unified, mental processing becomes more efficient. Efficiency conserves energy. Conserved energy becomes available for restoration. People often believe multitasking makes them productive. In reality, it taxes cognitive switching systems. The brain pays a cost every time it changes focus. When these costs accumulate, your baseline energy drops. You wake up already in deficit. There is something powerful about finishing what you start, even in small things. Completion signals safety to the brain. Safety allows relaxation. Relaxation allows deeper recovery. And deeper recovery is what you feel as morning vitality. Your morning energy is not a mystery. It is the mathematical result of how much tension remained unresolved and how fragmented your attention was the day before. Change those variables and the output changes. You do not need extreme routines, you need internal coherence. Close the day, unify your attention. These are not motivational tricks, they are system optimizations. And optimized systems do not wake up depleted, they wake up ready. If you are tired of treating exhaustion as normal, consider this your turning point. Real energy is not forced, it is allowed. And when you design your inner processes correctly, your mornings stop feeling like recovery from yesterday and start feeling like the beginning of something you actually have strength to live. There is a moment just before you fully wake when your system makes a decision. It decides whether today will begin from restoration or from residue. Most people never notice this moment, yet they feel its consequence immediately. If you open your eyes and already feel behind, heavy, or reluctant to move, that is not personality, that is carryover. Energy was not rebuilt, it was merely paused. What determines this carryover is not only stress, but the absence of internal completion. The human system is designed to operate in cycles: activation, resolution, release. When activation happens without resolution, the cycle remains open. An open cycle demands attention, and attention consumes energy even when you are asleep. Think about how many cycles you open in a single day. Conversations that stir emotion but never settle. Tasks you start but never mentally conclude. Comparisons that trigger self-doubt. Plans that exist only as pressure. Each one becomes a small background process. Individually, they seem harmless. Together, they overload the system. Energy loss is rarely dramatic, it is incremental. A little tension here, a little fragmentation there, a little anticipation about tomorrow. By night, the system is saturated. But because saturation builds slowly, you call it normal. Waking up tired becomes familiar, and familiarity hides dysfunction. The second strategy goes deeper than just focusing better. It is about cognitive closure. Closure means your brain recognizes that an action reached a stopping point. Without closure, it keeps the loop active. Active loops run during sleep, preventing deep neurological reset. This is why unfinished tasks feel mentally loud. They are not just reminders, they are unresolved neural patterns. The brain seeks completion because completion conserves energy. When you deliberately mark a task as paused, not abandoned but scheduled, you provide artificial closure. The brain accepts structure in place of resolution. Structure is a form of psychological safety. Safety reduces alertness. Reduced alertness allows recovery. Recovery creates energy. Another hidden drain is anticipatory stress. Not the event itself, but the mental rehearsal of it. You imagine tomorrow's problems repeatedly, believing preparation reduces risk. In reality, repetitive anticipation keeps your stress systems partially activated. You live tomorrow before it arrives, and your body pays today. Preparation is useful. Repetition is draining. The difference is intention. One clear planning moment creates order. Endless mental simulation creates fatigue. Your system does not distinguish sharply between real and imagined demands. If you mentally fight 10 future battles before bed, your physiology prepares as if they are happening. You enter sleep in a defensive posture. Defensive sleep is shallow sleep. This is why the quality of your final waking hour matters more than most of the night. The nervous system transitions gradually. If the last signals it receives are urgency, comparison, stimulation, and problem-solving, it maintains activation. If the last signals are closure, order, and calm, it downshifts. Downshifting is biological permission to repair. Repair is where energy is created. Now consider attention again, but from a different angle: identity fragmentation. When your attention is constantly pulled outward to other people's lives, expectations, information streams, your sense of internal direction weakens. A weak internal direction forces your system to constantly re-evaluate priorities. Constant re-evaluation is exhausting. Clarity saves energy. When you know what matters for the day, irrelevant signals lose power. Without clarity, everything feels equally urgent. Equal urgency creates overload. Overload leads to depletion that no amount of sleep can fully correct. So part of restoring energy is reducing unnecessary input. Not forever, just enough to allow internal alignment. Alignment reduces cognitive noise. Less noise means less processing. Less processing means more energy preserved. You might believe energy comes from motivation. In reality, motivation often appears after energy, not before. When your system feels restored, initiative rises naturally. When you are depleted, even meaningful tasks feel heavy. You interpret this as lack of discipline, but it is often lack of recovery. There is also a subtle emotional factor: self-pressure. Many people end the day evaluating themselves harshly. What they did not do, how they fell short, what they should improve tomorrow. This internal evaluation activates threat systems. The brain does not rest under perceived judgment. Self-assessment is useful only when it leads to clarity, not condemnation. Clarity reduces uncertainty. Condemnation increases stress. Stress blocks recovery. A simple shift changes everything. Instead of asking, "What did I fail at?" ask, "What did I move forward today?" Movement signals progress. Progress signals safety. Safety allows relaxation. Relaxation supports energy renewal. Your system thrives on signals of completion and direction. Without them, it remains in search mode. Search mode is alert mode. Alert mode consumes resources. You may notice that when you take even one day with fewer interruptions, fewer open loops, and a clearer endpoint, you wake up differently. Not dramatically, but noticeably. That difference is proof that energy is governed by internal regulation more than by external effort. If this resonates, take a moment to acknowledge one thing you completed recently, even something small. Write it down. Recognition reinforces closure. Closure reinforces recovery. Energy is not random. It follows patterns. When you change the pattern of how you end your day and how you direct your attention within it, mornings stop feeling like recovery from survival and start feeling like genuine renewal. There is one more layer most people never examine, and yet it might be the most decisive for how you wake up: the relationship between control and energy. The human system spends enormous resources trying to predict, manage, and prevent uncertainty. This function is useful in short bursts. But when it becomes a constant mode of operation, it drains vitality at the deepest level. Control feels like protection, but chronic control is internal tension. When you try to mentally manage every possible outcome, conversations, impressions, future scenarios, other people's reactions, your nervous system never exits vigilance. It treats life as a field of potential threats that must be continuously calculated. Calculation requires energy. Continuous calculation leads to depletion. You might not label it as control. You may call it responsibility, preparation, awareness. But if your mind is always scanning for what could go wrong, you are running a background threat detection system without pause. That system does not turn off just because you lie down. It reduces intensity but remains active, and anything active at night limits recovery. The paradox is simple. The more you try to control everything, the less energy you have to actually live. Control consumes what vitality is meant to fuel. The body has two fundamental modes: mobilization and restoration. Mobilization prepares you to act. Restoration repairs, rebuilds, and rebalances. These modes cannot dominate simultaneously. When control is excessive, mobilization stays partially on. Restoration gets partial access. Partial restoration means partial energy return. This is why people often wake up feeling as if something already demands them, even before the day begins. Their system never exited readiness. Readiness without rest becomes exhaustion. Letting go in this context is not philosophical. It is neurological. It is the act of signaling to your system that not everything requires pre-management. That uncertainty can exist without immediate action, that tomorrow can unfold without tonight's constant rehearsal. Every time you release a mental grip on something you cannot resolve right now, you free processing capacity. That capacity becomes available for repair. Repair is the birthplace of energy. There is also a biological truth often ignored. The body restores best in states of trust. Trust does not mean believing everything will be perfect. It means allowing reality to unfold without continuous internal resistance. Resistance is muscular, hormonal, and cognitive tension combined. Tension is metabolically expensive. If you observe people who wake up with natural energy, you will notice something subtle. They do not carry the entire world mentally before the day starts. They may have responsibilities, but their system is not braced in advance. They meet the day when it arrives, not hours before. Anticipatory living steals from present recovery. Another factor shaping your mornings is how you interpret tiredness itself. If you wake up and immediately think, "I'm already exhausted," you reinforce a state of depletion. The brain responds to interpretation. It allocates resources based on perceived capacity. If you treat fatigue as a permanent identity rather than a temporary state, your system reduces activation further. Energy is influenced by meaning. A body can perform beyond expectations when the mind perceives purpose and safety. Without those signals, even small efforts feel heavy. This does not mean ignoring tiredness. It means observing it without merging with it. I feel low energy right now is different from I am a low energy person. The first invites regulation. The second creates resignation. Morning energy is not a gift reserved for a few. It is the natural outcome of aligned internal processes. When you close cycles, focus your attention, reduce unnecessary control, and create rhythm, your system stops fighting itself. And when internal conflict decreases, available energy rises. It is important to understand that this shift is gradual. You are not flipping a switch. You are retraining patterns built over years. But the system responds quickly to consistency. Even a few days of intentional closure, focused attention, and reduced mental over-control can produce noticeable change in how you wake. The key is not intensity, it is repetition. Gentle but consistent signals of safety, order, and completion reshape your baseline state. If you are still here reflecting on this, it means some part of you recognizes the truth. Exhaustion has been normalized, but it is not inevitable. Your system is not broken. It is over-engaged and under-restored. Change the engagement pattern and restoration follows. Take a moment right now to choose one small action you will apply tonight. Perhaps a conscious mental closing of the day, perhaps reducing late stimulation, perhaps releasing one unresolved worry into tomorrow's structure. Say it to yourself clearly. Decision creates direction. Direction reduces internal noise. And if this perspective helped you see your energy differently, share what resonated most. Putting insight into words strengthens integration. You do not have to keep waking up depleted. When you understand your internal system and treat it with precision instead of pressure, mornings stop feeling like survival and start feeling like renewal. What ties everything together is not discipline, not motivation, and not even time management. It is regulation. Your system is not failing because you lack effort. It is exhausted because it has been operating without clear signals for when to engage and when to recover. Without those signals, the body defaults to guarded mode. Guarded mode is useful for survival, but destructive for long-term energy. Many people live as if every day is an emergency disguised as routine. The alarm rings, the mind jumps into pending demands, the body follows in a state of low-grade stress. There is no transition, no internal shift from rest to action, just immediate activation. When this becomes habitual, the nervous system forgets how to ramp up and down smoothly. Everything becomes either pressure or collapse. Energy thrives in oscillation, effort followed by release, focus followed by pause, engagement followed by closure. When oscillation disappears, depletion takes over. Constant engagement without release creates burnout. Constant collapse without intentional activation creates stagnation. The system needs rhythm between the two. Morning energy depends heavily on how gently activation begins. If the first thing you experience is urgency, alarms, notifications, thoughts about what you must solve, your stress response activates instantly. Cortisol rises sharply, muscles tighten, breathing shortens. This rapid spike feels like tension, not vitality. You are awake, but not energized. Alert, but not resourced. A smoother activation pattern changes everything. When waking includes even a brief moment of stillness, slower breathing, or light exposure before mental demands begin, the system transitions rather than jolts. Transition conserves energy. Shock consumes it. The body reads abruptness as threat. It reads gradual shifts as safety. Safety allows sustainable activation. Another overlooked piece is internal dialogue. The first thoughts of the day often set the tone of your physiological response. If the mind immediately runs scripts of pressure, I have too much to do, I didn't rest enough, this day will be exhausting, the system prepares for strain. Expectation influences output. The brain primes the body according to predicted experience. Gentle orientation changes that pattern. A simple recognition of presence, where you are, the fact that a new cycle has begun. One clear priority instead of a mental avalanche stabilizes attention. Stability reduces cognitive load. Reduced load preserves energy. Throughout the day, micro-pauses serve as energy resets. Most people move from task to task without any closure between them. Each task leaves a trace of tension. Without release, tension accumulates. Accumulated tension becomes background fatigue. A 10-second pause to breathe and mark a task as complete tells the system, this loop closed. Closure prevents buildup. The same applies emotionally. When interactions leave residue, irritation, self-doubt, urgency, and you carry it forward without processing, your internal environment grows heavier. Emotional residue is invisible weight. Processing does not require dramatic expression. Sometimes simple awareness and labeling are enough to reduce its intensity. By the end of the day, the difference between someone who pauses and someone who never stops is enormous, even if both did the same amount of work. One accumulated strain. The other cycled through activation and release. Only one of them will likely wake up with usable energy. Your system is designed for efficiency, not constant override. When you override signals of fatigue, hunger, or overwhelm repeatedly, the system compensates. Compensation keeps you functioning short-term, but drains reserves long-term. Morning exhaustion is often reserve depletion revealing itself. Rebuilding reserves is less about doing more restorative activities and more about removing unnecessary internal friction. Friction comes from unfinished loops, divided attention, excessive control, and absence of rhythm. Remove friction and natural energy returns. You might notice that children, before learning constant self-pressure, shift between states fluidly. They engage fully, then rest fully. They do not carry mental simulations of tomorrow into sleep. Their energy is not infinite. Their regulation is intact. As adults, responsibility increases, but the nervous system's needs do not change. Ignoring them does not make you stronger. It makes you depleted. Energy is the byproduct of internal harmony. When thoughts, emotions, and actions align, instead of pulling in different directions, effort feels lighter. When alignment breaks, even simple tasks feel heavy. Alignment is built through closure, focused attention, rhythmic structure, and reduced over-control. You do not need to redesign your life overnight. Start with one consistent signal of safety each evening. One moment of unified focus during the day, one reduction of unnecessary mental rehearsal, one stable anchor in your daily rhythm. Small signals, repeated, retrain the system. Over time, the morning stops feeling like recovery from damage and starts feeling like continuation of balance. Waking up with energy then becomes normal, not exceptional. If this reflection helped you see exhaustion differently, take a moment to internalize one truth. Your body is not your enemy. It is communicating. When you respond with understanding instead of pressure, cooperation replaces resistance. Energy returns not when you force it, but when you stop draining it unconsciously. And when you live in a way your system recognizes as sustainable, mornings become something you enter with readiness instead of reluctance.